Everybody ready here? All right, it's 5:30. I call this meeting to order. June. For we stand and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. So under call to order, our first task is to approve the agenda that's created.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Suzanne and Brian, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Brett, you're up with 15 minutes.
Yeah, for the safety moment, it is Lightning Safety Awareness Week. So it says, do you know lightning strikes US about 25 million times per year? We were actually out on the beach this last week on vacation, and it was storming on the beach, and we were underneath a thing. And then once it started lightning, we were like, oh, we got to go to the boat. So practice lightning safety. As far as cool moment, first of all, Suzanne, birthday, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool moment, I think. Second of all, I wanted to talk about two things really. One, you guys all have a mug sitting in front of you that is sort of a celebrative thing for our annual meeting. So just to give you some numbers on our annual meeting. So we had 400 members registered. We had approximately 900 chicken dinners served, 1,300 scoops of ice cream, $4,200 in donations from businesses and community partners. And then we did this comment card thing where we had people fill out the, just to give us comments and stuff. And so food and check-in, so check-in and registration got a 4 point, it's out of a 5-point scale, 4.9. Food got a 4.91. Location got a 4.81, and then just overall with it is 4.75. So in all, I think if you look at the numbers, we'll go over kind of what the voting stuff was here in a minute, but in general, I think it was a very good annual meeting. Sounds like the people that attended were, I mean, when you're saying 4.75 out of a 5 scale, out of 229 cards that we got. So there was 400 people that came and 400 members, 229 cards. And out of those 4.75, I think that's something to celebrate. So congratulations, because you guys helped put that together and fund that and do the things that we need to do to get there.
Greg, can I confirm that location was free, correct?
So we ended up doing a donation. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was free, but we did a small donation.
Okay.
And the only reason we did a donation, Suzanne, is because it was at Greensburg and we didn't want to.
Which is fine. I was confirming that. So
Yeah.
ask if that was correct.
That is absolutely correct. Next thing I wanted to go through was obviously on the 16th, we had a storm roll through. And if you see, depending on where you were at in the county, we had wind gusts that registered from 60 to 65 mile an hour, 65 obviously being, I think it was registered actually here in Greensburg. So not only here, but there was wind gusts across the entire state. So that was one thing that was unique about this storm. There's always something unique about a storm. And this one was, it really stretched a large part of the state, which really made it difficult because there's not a lot of mutual aid assistance, right, available. So that obviously makes it even more difficult. So we had 60 unique outages that affected about 3,900 members, about 3,975 at one point in time, all said and done. Like I said, all statewide co-op, there was a lot of co-ops that were affected. I don't know if it was all of them, but there was a bunch around us. And so, so just a little bit here. So we finished with no one out over 21 hours. So we didn't have anybody out for over 24 hours. That's kind of always been like even classified as a major storm, which this one was, and you'll see that here in a minute when I go through the data, we'd had no one out over, a day essentially. And we did it accident free. So we did learn some things. We had some stuff that we captured as far as just improvements that we can make from a safety standpoint, but we never had a near miss. We never had a accident. So I think being able to do that as quickly as we did with the resources that we had, because again, we didn't have a ton of resources that we could call from outside. Overall, I think that storm went really well. So if you guys have heard anything else as far as good, bad, ugly, let me know. We always kind of do a look back, and like I said, there's always something unique about a storm. And so there's always things to learn from it. So if you heard anything, just let me know.
Kudos for the Decatur County RNC doing such a fantastic job. So we ready to go on? Absolutely. For your information. If everybody takes a closer look at the reports generated there, if you have any questions, now's the time.
Yeah, your axe charges. I noticed like on page one, the first, 1, 2, 3, 4 down. It says Office Pro Day, Professional Day. CP Tavern?
Yeah, we had them cater a meal. It was,
So you had them cater it.
yeah.
Oh. I thought you took them down to Tavern.
Employ Mariah, I'm sure.
I didn't know CP Tavern.
Yeah, we actually use
That's what we use for the annual meeting.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we combined Office Professional Day and Lineman Appreciation Day into one, and we catered a meal that day. Good question. We've been a lot funner if we were there, maybe. But
Been different.
Maybe, maybe not. It's pretty smoky in there.
Check register, page 8, special equipment. What is that second?
ACH, AJ.
ACH, yeah. United Utility Supply, special equipment.
Those were transformers.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I believe they were 25 kVA pad mounts, if I remember right. That I can't swear to though.
This size.
I think there was 10 of them.
Is there something we should know under check register? It says physical chiropractic, what page? Page 1. Gout chiropractic,
DOT physicals.
Yeah.
DOT physicals.
it's just a physical,
Yeah.
he does the physical for, it's just not anything.
Just a regular DOT physical.
Okay.
That's where I could get mine too.
So that's who we used to.
Anything else for your information? Does anybody else have any questions as it relates to anything there? We good to go on? All right, so the next item we had, we have in front of us to approve the meeting minutes from our main meeting and what we did in executive session. And I'm good with combining both of those with one month, and unless someone sees any changes that need to be made.
Do we ever put the amounts of the delinquent write-offs in the minutes? Just to note that,
We have in the past, yeah.
just to show the amount of decrease we've done. I thought in years past, but I think it's pretty impressive, the decrease over the years in our write-offs.
We can add that as something.
Is that something okay to add? It'd be the,
What was,
Very-
what was that dollar amount?
42, so I can't remember. It's in
2210, I don't know.
Last, we can look at last.
Or even if you did just, I think that's something for members to be impressed by how much that has gone up, just since I've been on the board, how much that's decreased.
Oh, 2111.
Okay.
2001.
Yeah,
Pretty
2020.
impressive. I just think if we could maybe insert the amount for notes.
We have in years past, so
I thought we had, okay.
I mean, you know, and you, yeah, I'm fine with that. Everybody good with that? We'll go ahead and include that amount. Do we need to compare it though to the previous year or just leave it as a? So
I would just-
previous year was, I think, 5.
I would just say the amount of language write-offs with the amount decided to the board approval.
That's fine. If everybody's good with that. Yeah. So we'll include then, the motion to include the amended, write-off amount just for the 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve
And you're approving,
with the addition.
and the executive session one as well. Okay, so we have a first.
Second.
We have a second. Suzanne and Dale, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. All right, so those have been approved. Looks like the next item then is your updates, Brett.
All right, so a couple things. Annual meeting, I wanted to go over, just give everybody a quick update as far as where we're at and the metrics. So if you look at quorum, you can see there we're down just a tick from last year, but pretty much in line. So I think last year was 20.64. This year was 19.61. I think it was a difference of like 100 votes, if I remember right. And then you look at, so the gray is Smart Hub and online, the orange is paper, and then the overall, you can see we are gradually still moving from paper to online. And then again, we went from 20 to 19.61 as far as the quorum. And the vote total, so from 2024, we had 1,386 votes. 2025, we had 1,325 votes. So we were less than 100 votes off. All right, so we'll move on to fiber unless anybody else has anything for the annual meeting. Once we get all the survey data back, we'll do kind of like an over briefing of like what we heard from the surveys, comment sheets, and it'll include all the voting tally stuff and all that. We'll do that again next month. Any other questions on that so far? All right, so fiber project, I want to give everybody an update on this because there's a lot going on, a lot of good things going on. So that's the map of where we're building and the 6, what we're calling design areas, DAs. And you can see DA1 is kind of where we started. Everything that highlighted black is what's actually built, right? So DA1, which is the one on the far right bottom, we've had 31, almost 32 miles of main line installed. So that's about 98% complete of the main line. And we have less than a mile of underground to go. And DA2, which is that blue colored one, we have 7.3 miles of main line complete, which is about 23%. And we got just shy of a mile left in underground in there. So splicing is supposed to start July 11th. So splicing basically means what they're doing is they're hanging everything up. And then once they run out of a reel, they roll it up on this big thing and then they start a new reel. They'll come back in and have separate crews come in and splice that all together. So obviously you can't create the light through all this and do any type of secondary drops until you get that splicing done. So the 7th of July is what we're on track to do that. So we'll start taking sign up once the splicing is completed and tested for the drops to be installed. That right now, our target date is July 21st. So 2 key dates. July 7th is when we'll have our splicing crew starting. July 21st is when we expect to have open for enrollment in those areas. We got another piece of really good information. So we received our first, so this was an advantage of going through Accord, I believe. It came through Accord and went to SCI, and then we helped negotiate terms for this. We were awarded a cell phone tower. So, and it is actually in our design area. We are basically being paid to build approximately 3 miles of line to connect the cell tower to the SCI network. We'll share revenues as per the contract, but I think that's a huge win. It's not, yeah, it's not in this territory, but we are being paid to basically, and I don't have a map of exactly where it's at, but we're being paid 100% to build that line there. We are probably going to bring back in front of you guys eventually. We don't have the numbers of what it's going to cost to do drops there. It's where it's at. There are folks that are already served by some type of broadband, whether it's fiber or wireless. But it might make sense for us to go ahead and, we haven't made that decision yet. When we do, we'll bring it to you. But it may make sense to go ahead and do while we're building to this. Do you remember exactly where it was at?
It's near Jennings and Millhausen. It's down in
That area.
I think it's in Jennings County is where it's at. It's, there's about 50 people we could probably. I think
Anyway,
about 50 people we could hook up with it for not a ton of money. We've got we don't have anything finalized, but we have gotten back a few rough ideas.
Yep. So good news. Basically, it's a free build for us to build the tower because they were paying for it and we won the bid. And again, it came through a court. So I think it's a very good success story.
It's 3 miles on our poles too, right?
Yep. 3.1. Yep. Just to give you some budget updates on fiber. And I know we haven't showed a lot about budget, and I'm going to start making this a part of the packet actually. So I wanted to hit up a couple things, and I will actually send this out so you can all see this, but the highlight stuff is what I really wanted to go over. So at the top, what we did, and this is from the lifetime. So this isn't what we put in the budget. This is literally the lifetime of fiber. And so as you can see that what we've been talking about, we had $312,000 reduction in our grant. That's from basically those addresses that the state came back and said, you got to remove these from the grant. So we've accounted for that in here. Construction materials look weird. So if you look at the plan versus the forecast, they're sort of flip-flopped, right? And that's just because it was based upon an estimated design. That's where the forecast is an actual design. So what you basically can see there is our construction forecasting was under, and then the materials were over. And so they basically kind of wipe each other out. The other interesting thing here is at the bottom, if you see the stuff that's at the bottom, which is the REMC labor, training, legal cost, we didn't put any of that into the budget for fiber because we essentially said it was going to be part of the business, right? We were going to earmark it, but we weren't going to basically put it as part of the planned budget. So even with those dollars, we are sitting about $21,000 below budget. So about 0.2% below budget from what we had originally planned to where we're forecasting current numbers as of 6/18. So I think we're in a really, really good spot. And a lot of this, again, has to do with just, the make-readies came out way ahead. I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of managing material. Yeah, correct. And that'll even be a bigger.
That'll be the forecast numbers as we get more done, get final invoices. We haven't got all the invoices on Make Ready and everything yet. There's still some stuff that I updated. This is within $100 out of all the invoices I received up until there's one invoice came in yesterday. This is everything that we've gotten so far. The actuals, yeah.
So questions on fiber? Crowdsourcing still up. So if you guys have folks that are coming to you asking, am I part of this? Am I part of this? There's two things. If I would have them go to the website, they can go underneath FiberStream and then they can go and put their address in there. Two things. One, if they are in the build area, they can go ahead and fill out a form that says, I want the service, and we'll follow up on that lead. Or if there's somebody that's not in the build area and they're in maybe the BEAD area, they still should fill that out because that'll give us as much information. It could be we get done with this and we find out that, hey, there's an area that for some reason didn't get funding from the state or federal, but it might be something that we have people interested in and may make business sense to do. So I would just keep having those folks put in their requests in there if they're interested.
You asked if there were any questions. Did Sam get a lot of people stop by his booth?
He did. He got a ton. He got a ton. He had a few upset folks that wondered why they weren't in the phase one. And, you know, he did his best job to answer the question as far as, you know, that's what the scale was. So that's kind of, you know, the board's made a decision that we have to, it's got to be a business that can stand on its own. And therefore, this is all we got. We put it in for the rest, you know, for the whole thing. And this is what we got, but we will have BEAD. I was going to give you a little bit of a BEAD update, although it's still moving pretty a lot right now. As far as timing, we don't know a whole lot other than mid-July, I believe, is when they're supposed to. So we're going to have 11 days to put in for BEAD. We do know that. Do you know the exact date?
That's really a lot of.
10th or the 11th.
So is everybody aware what's taking place with BEAD?
I sent the email.
I know, yeah, I just.
Yeah, you know what? We haven't had a meeting since then. So yeah, let me back up. So basically what happened in BEAD was, and we were sort of afraid of this because of the things that are going on at the federal level. So they have basically said everything is on hold originally, right? So they said everything for BEAD is on hold. Then they came back and said all awards have been rescinded. So no one gets an award that originally was named an award. And we are backing up with different requirements. Therefore, everyone, even if you're awarded or someone new, has to reapply for BEAD, which we're saying is going to be mid-July at this point, with 11 days to get to get it in. So everything that we were preliminary awarded is gone. I kind of look at this as there's a possibility here of being able to pick up more. Although one thing that's going to hurt us the most is it is totally technology. So fiber isn't necessarily a preferred anymore, right? So any technology that meets the requirements of the speeds of 20 by 100 by 20 can apply. Fixed wireless can apply. So there's going to be some, and it'll be interesting to see with the maps. We were told they weren't going to go and we challenged Watch and won that challenge. And so it put a ton of addresses back on. They acted like they aren't going to come back and undo those challenges. But if there are folks that it could affect it, we don't know. We won't know until we see the maps. So no one really knows how this is going to go. It is based upon cost. If you are 15% within the lowest cost, you will get some favorable scoring based upon if you won in BEAD round one. So, and you'll benefit by being fiber. So you have to be within 15% of the lowest bid in order to benefit from fiber. In other words, the service of being fiber. And number two, knowing that we had already preliminary won some stuff in round one. So it is purely going to be based upon cost is what we're thinking. So our strategy going into this, we've been working on that. And I don't want to talk a lot about it in an open session, but we've been working on strategy. It's going to look a little different based upon the fact that we know now it's going to have to be very sharp with pencil. But honestly, I think we stay with my opinion is we stay with what you guys approved originally, which is it's got to be a business that has some financials behind it. And we stick to that and we back into what those numbers are going to be, strategize. It's going to be way more than one. In fact, it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 applications. And we just back into what those numbers are according to what we approved. And we just put our best foot forward and hope for the best. I mean, we in my opinion, we can't go in and low cost these and then win them and be stuck with ugly financials.
I think you may have just answered my question, but so everything was rescinded. We have to reapply for all grants?
Not next level. So what we won,
Next level, but BEAD.
everything. Yep.
And you just said 5 to 15. Are we going to reapply for everything or is it going to be?
We're going to reapply for everything, but we're going to do it knowing the number one thing now is cost. So ideally, you're going to group low-cost areas. Yeah, no. Yeah, I got to be quiet on strategy, but you kind of get what I'm saying, right? Like,
There's still no protection against big companies coming in and bidding zero
nope,
and then not building.
nope. I've voiced my frustrations federally and state.
So are the BEAD dollars still the same?
Yeah, BEAD dollars are unaffected. There's a few changes in the program, but nothing. I mean, the biggest impact was the not having fiber as preference. And there's a lot of schools of thought around like, okay, does this put like a lot of grant dollars in satellites and things like that? I think the biggest, I don't think that's going to change the game. I think the biggest threat is going to be your wireless, your folks that have wireless that like watch, that are going to meet the requirements and they're going to be able to do it at a very, very low cost. And in my opinion, Bretta Plamp's opinion is taxpayers' money is going to go to a technology that's probably only good for a couple of years. And we're right back to where we are again. So above our pay grade, but we'll see. I tend to be an optimist, and so I'm going to say this could be a good thing for us, and we're going to sharpen our pencils, and we're going to put our best foot forward on an application. And if we don't get it, that means that we probably shouldn't, right? I mean, if the financials don't work, the financials don't work. So, I mean, I think the plan you guys put together on how we can move forward with this business works. Let's just move forward back into the numbers and apply.
And again, I don't think our goal was to be the exclusive provider of fiber. That's not what our plan is. That's not what our goal is.
I still think, Dale, it's a win if we don't get an area, yet we force, because someone undercut us, had a low cost solution, and they still meet the requirements and things. We still had a part in getting fiber to our members who didn't have, maybe not fiber, but are getting some type of internet
High speed, sure.
that otherwise may not have. So,
We had an influence.
yeah, and that was our goal at the beginning.
And can you state one more time, did you say there's going to be a day?
And then we have 11 days to,
So it's mid-July is the date that they're saying. Now, every date they tell us
Changes.
changes. So we're basically telling people mid-July, you're going to have 11 days. And I think by September, they should have awards. That's what we're being told. Again, that's what they're telling us. Those dates can move around. But I do know that the state of Indiana, so it'll be interesting because the state of Indiana, it has been very vocal on the fact that fiber is the preferred technology for the future. Don't Band-Aid this problem. So, you know, I'm assuming, and we've got a really good relation with them, I'm assuming they're going to do whatever they can do. But they still have federal guidelines that they have to follow, right? So we'll see. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I completely forgot. It's been like,
That's fine, yeah. But
it was like at the 4 or 5 days after the last board meeting, and I sent the email out and I kept thinking we had covered it last board meeting, but we couldn't because I think it was the 6th. Any other questions on fiber? All right, so the next one is our meter replacement program. So we've received all the DCUs. So these are the data collection units. They begin deploying these in the field. We've actually started and we'll be working on that over the next month. So integrating this into our NISC has been going very smoothly. We're actually ahead of schedule with them. Crystal, our 2 meter techs, had actually training last week or the week of the 9th. They are now actually certified to be able to do the programming that you would need to do any changes to our actual meter packages and how that stuff all comes in. Meter deployment is still on track to begin August, with a 6 to 8 week deployment. So we'll start in August, and the idea is we will be done by the end of the year. So that's the good news. I'm going to move on to the budget stuff on this. So I'm going to give you guys a bunch of stuff, and what I'm going to tell you here is this is like literally a week old, maybe a couple days old. It's not very old. In fact, we haven't even really had a whole lot of time to try to navigate mitigations in this. So it's not reflected in the financials for this month because it just came through. All these invoices and things just came through. So hold on a minute. We're gonna try to mitigate as much as we can, but I want you guys to be aware of kind of what we're facing right now as far as the meter program. So in general, in our budget for the meters, we're running about 11% above the budget. And so I'm going to go through specifically where we're seeing these. And again, this forecast is based, some of this is well known, and some of this is sort of our best guess at where we're going to end up. So what I would do is I'd be looking at, here's what we set for the budget, here's what we're forecasting to be, and I'm going to go through the lines individually just so you kind of know where we're at on this. So the biggest thing here, and unfortunately, if you go back and read all the quotes, there's a bunch of fine line printing at the bottom of it that says taxes not included. And so unfortunately, a lot of this stuff came in and taxes included. So it wasn't part of the budget. So on this first one, of that 49,000, 31,000 of that overage is because of tax. Another thing that we had is we found out that our poles, when we did the studies, our poles weren't tall, ended up being tall enough in some certain areas to get over some of the terrain. And so there was quite a few poles that we would have had to have replaced. We didn't replace them. We bought this hardware that basically gets it above the DCUs above the poles. So we wouldn't have to replace the poles because all the poles were in good condition. That had about an $18,000 impact to get those heights. So if you take the 31, the 18, that gets you to that close to that 49.
Sorry, DCU is.
You had to ask that.
That's
Data collection unit. So it's basically the antenna, the collectors. Next down is the meters, which is the big one, 153,000. 101 of that was taxes. 32,000 of it. So there's about, I forget how many, but there's double digits of different meter types that we have in our system, right? And so one of the meter types got under ordered. Or basically we didn't order enough of them, right? So what we had on our system and what was ordered was mismatched. And so that was to the tune of about 32,000. And then we did buy an extra pallet, which was not in budget. We thought we needed that pallet just because of new services and things. And price, they acknowledged the pricing we had originally. So
Safety stuff.
it was basically safety stock. So if you take the 101, the 32, and the 20, it gets right at that 153. Next line down is the hardware miscellaneous parts. So while we were doing these, it was way cheaper for us to fiber ready these. So we based all this on doing cell service to all the collectors, the DCUs. And so eventually, if we put fiber up in these areas, we're going to run fiber to these things. And so if you do it while you're hanging these things, it'd be way cheaper, right, than to try to do it afterwards. And so that ended up being about 25,000 to make it fiber ready for all these DCUs. So that's where that 25 comes from. And then labor, this is just more about, we didn't really put any of we're now putting all of our labor towards it, right? So we're coding our labor to this project. And we didn't really budget for that. So there's 25,000 that we're estimating is going to go to that. And that's just everybody's time that's working on the project that's internal. You could argue that whether you make that part of this project or not, I mean, you're paying those dollars anyway, but we went ahead and we're coding our time there. So we thought we would show it on here. So again, we haven't had a whole lot of time to react to this. There are a couple things that we're thinking of. We are putting some pressure on the supplier about the tax we are also looking at things like, do we next year really need any new? I mean, so we always in our budget put in for at least $40,000 in buying meters. Well, I'm hoping to God next year we wouldn't have to put any money in the budget. So there's some money there that we could dip into. Whether So there's a bunch of different options that we just really haven't had a chance. I wanted to get this out because I thought it was a big enough deal being 11% off that you guys need to know about it and know that we are trying to mitigate it and see what we can do. But
So of the 252, Brett, do I understand then about 131, 132 is taxes?
about 150, wasn't it almost?
About 150. 153, I think is what it came up with.
Yeah, so a lot of it is taxes, but Dale still,
$1 million in product, more or less. Variables.
This is pretty much everything, or is there gonna be more?
this is our best guess right now. And I mean, we've received most of, so where you see it says the actuals. So I'm going to answer your question up here. We pretty much know this one, right? Because the actuals, right? They've already showed up. We pretty much know what this one's going to be. This one we know is going to be there. That one is okay. That one should be bond.
That might be lower, never know.
Yeah. It's,
That won't be the same.
that will be the same. So
Most of the exposure has already been experienced.
correct. We may be overestimating some of them. I feel like it's probably not going to get any worse than this, is my point. About the time I say that, something.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that. That was it. And we got all these invoices in the last week and a half.
So none of this is reflective
So
in
when
your.
you look at your main financials, there's only about, since it was, I think there was about $100,000 in total in this project as of the end of May. So like 1.8 million of this come in the last 2 weeks.
Questions?
Like the installation of the DCUs then, so there'd be no labor on that, or where does that labor show up?
It's going to show up in the RMC link.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is really one line.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for the RMC labor does include like the time when I spend putting this together and Crystal's time and stuff like that. But the installation of DCUs and the RMC labor is kind of one.
It'll all be in there. Okay. Any other questions?
Why wasn't the tax budgeted for? Is that just a missed item?
It's a miss. I mean, it was a fine print on the bottom of the bid. There's really not an excuse I can give you, Suzanne. We are a little upset the fact that they were in here though. I mean, you guys, they presented in front of all of us. It's like, they knew we were using these numbers. A little disappointed that they didn't point it out, but, and it's our mistake.
That we're leaving up now, there's really not an issue other than just letting us know the new number.
Well, we're gonna do what we can do. I mean, I told Sam go find 252,000 in fiber, but we're gonna see if there's any mitigations we can do. I'll be quite honest, I don't know in this project if there is, but I'm not gonna give up. Number one, we just found out about it, so we'll see what we can do. I have a hard time believing that we're gonna be able to squeeze 252 out of this project. There's probably no way.
We are selling them.
Who's buying the old meters?
I can't remember the company it's buying them,
Can we
but
put a tax on that to make it on our tax?
yeah.
Can we increase the delivery cost and deliver to them?
Very good. Other questions? All right, and then last one, pole replacements are completed for the year, so we're completely done. Actually, AES just finished our last year's. So you guys have seen the red tags on newer poles, and we ended up at what percentage?
3.5. We got the invoice yesterday.
So 3.5% is good. I mean, we've been,
There was 221 out of 6,000 and some. So
I mean, that, I always, for next year.
All I've seen so far is the invoice, and Johnny hasn't had time to dig into it because he just got the data, I think, yesterday or today. So, but the invoice came yesterday or today.
What that tells us though is our cycle is in pretty good shape. I think
3.5% is lower than it's been for a while.
I mean, I think we started at like 8-9%, and then we spun that up a little bit. So I think we're in a really good spot as far as floor replacements. Good. When we keep going? Sure. So May, a little different story than this month. So anyway, we're a little bit cooler, about 4.4% below the median. So this was a little interesting this month. So if you look at the cooling degree days, we were quite a bit. So it shows you the cooler weather and people won't run their air conditioners, right? So you're going to see a drastic change from budget and residential. But yet again, in the heating degree days, we were above the 5-year average. So we weren't using air conditioners, we were using heaters more in May. So what's that do to your purchase energy? It puts us down about 2%. So if you look at our 5-year average compared to what's highlighted there, we were about 2% lower than our 5-year average. And then demand was actually almost 6% lower. And again, what this means is folks weren't running their air conditioners, and you're going to see it pop up in residential right there. So we were about 5.9%. Typically, May can be a little bit warmer than what it was this May. And it shows up in residential, but it also shows up big in commercial, and it showed up in industrials. Transmission's kind of there where it was. So I think industrials is just because the market of our industrials is slowing up a bit. Commercial, it's weather probably related, and obviously residential is. So it moved us from being above budget at 3.28 to 1.44. I got a feeling this next month, with as hot as it's been, and we've been on MISO alerts for since Monday. Okay. So I'm assuming that we will make up plus some probably this month. Safety and outages. So I did want to hit up just while it's fresh in our minds this last storm and kind of what it means. So I know it's next month's data, but I thought while I had you all together, I could kind of explain here what we got going on. So for May, it was very low, right? There just wasn't a lot. You'll see it in the numbers here in a minute. But you see how we popped up that red line that goes through there says anything statistically that comes above that line means that something unnormal happened. Right, statistically. And so that is when they tell you to classify it as a major storm as opposed to like trees or machinery or whatever caused the outage. You code that to major storm, and it helps you when you go to, doesn't really help you, but when you go to report this on your Form 7, it goes to major storm instead of regular outages. It helps sort of smooth the data to make sense of the data as much as you can when you look at outage data. So we were well over the red line. Shows you the winds up there. The storm was across the state. We had 60 unique outages, 3975 members. We lost about 106 million minutes. And we had 6 broken poles, which actually 6 broken poles seems like a lot, but when you compare it around the state, that's not very many. So, and all in all, we feel like our system performed very well. A lot of the dead stuff, a lot of the dead ash came out. I keep saying this, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a day that the dead ash aren't hurting us, but transmission saw a big outage. There was a big tree that went over a Duke transmission line, cost a lot of members and lost consumer hours here. So not a horrible storm, but also not a mediocre. I mean, we haven't seen 2 storms in where we're at today that go across these 2 lines in years. So, but from a point of reference, you can see we're right about that 100 mark. The ice storm in 2018 was around, I want to say, almost 300 mark. So 3 times worse than this storm. So for May, if you look at the lost consumer, or again, May was really just a average month, I would say, even below average when it comes to outages. Any questions as far as any of the metrics? I've talked enough. Matt's turn.
All right, so got the balance sheet to start with. Up here so I can actually see it. Get glasses here. So. All right, so first we'll start off with I guess I'll start with letter B. Large amount of plant was placed in service. The full invoices came in May. We talked about that last month. So that's where that big number came from. A is the total current accrued assets. Most of that's the reduction in cash. I mean, hold it. C, other deferred debits. That's where we've been putting the fiber in the RF meter project. We got a large number of invoices in May. All the design, a lot of the design, I would say all of it. We got a lot of design invoices that were significant. So that's where that's showing up. And then D, there's a large increase in AP, mostly due to the fiber and the RF meter projects. And most of that is the fiber. The RF meter projects will show up in June. Any questions on the balance sheet?
The reduction in the cash is just paying all these bills.
Yep. We'll go into that more later on too, I believe. Next, to have the statement of operations. Main thing there is the operating revenue and power costs. So we've got the biggest thing for the operating revenue being high is there's illegal pole contact income, and there's a pole contact application fee out there that we received. So we haven't necessarily got all the costs with that, but we have received the income. So that affected that. Power costs, as Brett said, everything came down a bunch this past month. So the difference between why the gross margin is higher is because of the pole contact stuff. Other than that, controllable expenses, there's a lot of, we're under in that because there is a lot of labor that's being put towards the RF meter and there's what, 100 and some thousand that's been put towards fiber. So there's a lot of labor that's showing up there. The right of way is way ahead. So that's one thing where it's over. Outside of that, there's really, that pretty much covers the bulk of it. I mean, those are, I would say, the key highlights. Any questions on any of that?
Have we got all the illegal pole contact? Well, I mean, we know everybody that has illegally done pole contacts. I mean,
We know the ones that in phase one that we had to go out and touch. No, not all of them are done yet.
Okay.
So we did get,
we'll try to find, because you're showing here, okay.
Well, that was that fine that we received for the ones where we caught them.
Yeah.
I get you that. That was last month, which Carl wasn't here for that. That's why. And then cash.
You know,
yeah, we are.
Yeah. And then cash flows, said cash is down for the month.
real quick, another question. The illegal ones that you found, did we go back and say, hey, when'd you put them on and get them that way? Or do you have to start from?
So the way depends. If they don't have a contract, then no, it's negotiable. If you have a contract, which we do, we didn't for the one that we had, that's why we got so much. For the other ones, it's a pretty set fee. It doesn't go, it won't allow you to go back in time.
We'll just go from the start of the contract, basically.
No, you just a one-time
Oh, okay.
fee.
I see.
The newer contracts that we're doing, they're time-based.
Yeah.
But these are, a lot of these are 2012
Yeah, it's just,
contracts.
Well, and there's legal pole contacts out there where somebody slaps something up. We never found it for years.
Correct.
too bad you can't get the people that are putting up yard sales.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
There's a shit problem.
That probably wouldn't go over real well.
Yeah.
Anything here?
Unless anybody has any questions. Plant, as you can see, where pole replacements jumped up a whole bunch. That's where the bulk of the change was. Everything else going up pretty much about like normal. There's nothing really earth shattering, I feel, like the plan.
Well, one thing I probably ought to know, we had it is our spare truck at this point, spare bucket, but we just had it, yeah, there's two actually.
We got the other.
So we had two that have failed inspections. So like broken welds, broken buckets, things that render it not serviceable.
Who's making those inspections? Is that us? Is that?
That does it. So you have to have it. There's like a report you have to do as part of the.
Like the old vehicle inspection?
And so one of them is to the point, I haven't seen the second one yet, but the truck 12, which is our spare. It's to the point where it's not, it would cost you too much to replace, to get it up to
They
snuff.
might both be.
Yeah. So anyways, more to come on that because, yeah.
It's interesting how Altech expecting versatile lift trucks. And I don't know. Wonder first lift expected it to be the Altech trucks. I don't know.
Anything else on this one? I think we're good.
All right, so next, as with all these projects coming and all the invoices that have arrived in the last 40 days, want to give you an update as to what we're, based off what originally been planned in the budget and where we are now. We are getting at that point where we are going to have to start borrowing money. So if you want to move on to the next. So last October, this is for the RF metering program. This is from the October board meeting. I think the plan was to borrow $1.5 million from CFC and then use some of the Hoosier credit. I believe that was what was discussed. One of the things with the budget though, is we budgeted the meter project lasting over 2 years and they're actually ahead of schedule and they're going to be done by the end of the year. So that's going to put some pressure on that. So there's about $1.5 million there that we're probably going to have to borrow based off what the plan was in order to make that work. And that'll probably, in the budget, there was only, I believe, $500,000 of this was for that. So there'll be closer to, there'll be an extra $1 million there. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. And then fiber, the CFC loan funds down there at the bottom. This is from the budget meeting where we figured things would cost and where we get stuff money wise to go from. So we're looking there at about $6 million there. So, and these two things, we want to move on to the next slide. These two things don't necessarily include CapEx and capital credits and the regular running of the RMC that we had in the budget either. So these are kind of, they're tied together. I mean, at the end of the day, it is all one bucket that is borrowed from, but these are coming up. Right now, I priced long-term rates yesterday and short-term rates, and they're very similar. And at this point, I don't feel, I don't know exactly whether or not you want to borrow everything long-term immediately or borrow it over time. And I think the best way to spread the risk out is to borrow it slowly over time, because then if stuff does change drastically one way or the other, you've reduced your risk. And I don't want to borrow everything today and have rates drop 2%.
Right.
And I don't want to borrow everything in 6 months and have rates go up 2%. And it's not like it was several years ago when interest was 1%. It was an extreme and easy decision. So I guess what with the rate that they're proceeding on all these projects, we're going to be borrowing short-term money, probably about $4 million next week to make all the bills that are sitting there be paid. So we're going to have about $5.5 million out on our line of credit. I am going to start applying for the grant money since we started construction. We can go ahead and start getting some grant money back, but we'll get some there, but we're going to have to borrow the money. Projects are going to cost X, and I mean, it was in the budget to borrow. So I guess this is more of a, this is the plan, is there to spread it out unless.
Our point is this is what we think's best, unless you guys have a crystal ball that says differently. everything we are seeing shows that interest rates are supposed to come down. The short-term CDs, we had.
If my crystal ball could tell you what it could do from here, I wouldn't be here today.
So we think doing it slowly, but I told him let's exhaust what we have on short term because it is a lower rate. That buys us a little bit of time, not much. And then we just start taking little chunks over the next 8 months. I think waiting I like, this is Matt's kind of original idea, and I think doing it all right now, knowing interest rates could come down would be crazy. But I think waiting, it could go up too. I mean, we also know that housing has completely stalled, which may force them down a little, right? And so.
If inflation runs wild, it'll go up. If inflation starts coming down, it'll go down. Yep. And there's just so many unknowns right now. I mean, if Iran decides to close the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow, that could change everything.
Right.
So anyways, that's sort of our plan. We were just kind of.
And then along with that, the other thing is capital credit retirement. We normally do that in August. So that there'll also be some borrowing along with that, as well as the regular plant. I mean, we are ahead on, as Brett said earlier, all placements are done. We're moving right along with the plans that were set in place. So it's not, I think things are moving.
That was the other question though, is everyone okay? We've been doing credit retirements in August. It's way easier for us to do it in August than it is to wait. We have waited in past years, once or twice maybe. I don't really see the benefit of waiting. It's a lot tougher to do it. So we just wanted to make sure you guys are okay doing. We've already approved the amount.
And we did it last year, I think, August from July's bill.
I think so, yeah. Since I've been here, it's been August, I think, every month. I think it's one.
The board okay with that? I think it makes sense. And back to Matt's approach, is everybody good with that? Kind of over the long haul, go slow with.
So on the meter project, you said we're running way ahead, which is obviously a good thing, which is going to force the cash crunch.
Cash crunch is here.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. It's accelerated because of that.
Yes.
Going back to the cost overruns on the meter project, are there any, and I know you haven't looked real in depth, but are there any opportunities to mitigate some of that cost because it's been condensed?
Or as we found the $253,000 that were over budget, it's still.
I think the RF meter project, that's going to be what that's going to be. I don't know. There's.
So whether it's this long or this long, it's going to be the cost that we're seeing now. It's not, I mean, the fact that we're running way ahead, we're not going to, there's no early completion bonus.
No.
I mean, you're not going to find anything like that that's by virtue of it being the shorter duration. We're going to.
The only thing you're going to get is what I would consider. We're not going to see increases that could happen next year. So it's avoided cost, right?
I mean, the meters that they got, the extra pallet, they're significantly cheaper than the ones that buying meters with this project does save some money.
Well, but the benefits by virtue of this being completed sooner, the benefits we foresaw when we decided to do it we're going to be able to experience them sooner.
Yes.
The only plus that I don't know how we talked about it today, and I don't know how to really quantify it this part, but we could get more money from the transformers that we're going to remove as soon as we get these all going. Right. So we weren't planning on until mid next year. So that might be issues. I don't know.
It might be minimal, but yeah, sure.
It's a timing issue.
I mean, that's why I said there has to be some benefit for completing it sooner. I don't know what it is. It sounds like you're not necessarily sure what it is.
I'm not going to put a dollar.
They're small little things though. I mean, labor is going to be one of them, right?
Pennies make dollars.
I just have two questions just to clarify, because I know there's a few questions that come up after this. Matt, what's your best on the percentage of what we are borrowing total is for the fiber and the meter replacement project?
So that 7.6 million will be those.
And what percentage on each? 75% fiber, 25% meter?
Fiber will be roughly 6 million, and the fiber and the meter project will be 1.5 million,
Okay.
give or take a little.
So percentage would be 1.5.
That's close enough. I mean, that makes sense.
I mean, since the meter project is gonna be over budget, I'm gonna figure probably 1.6 is gonna be on it. And the fiber project looks like, knock on wood, it may come in a hair under. So
60%.
Between the grant money,
And the grant money that we get reimbursed.
that's taken into account there. Because the project's gonna be about 10.5 million. And we're gonna get about 4 million in grants. And so we're gonna have to come up with about 6 million.
Where does B play into this?
This doesn't have anything for Pete.
So this is if we get 0 from B right now.
this is just phase
This
one.
is phase
Just
one.
a- This is just a $10 million bead, could be 30.
So when we get the comments, keep borrowing and raising our rates. When was the last year we raised rates?
2018
18 or 19, what, 19?
base rates.
I just know that'll be the next question. Keep raising our rates because you keep borrowing money, but that's not the case
It hasn't been the case.
since 19.
No. We actually have our net borrowings. This will be the first year they've gone up since I've been here. From the beginning.
And what year was that? What was your first year?
Not what it seems like, the actual.
We're paying our debt.
Right.
We're paying our debt up almost as fast as, and I think I take that back. We probably have we borrowed about $2 million more than when I started, but we're paying $1 million a year in debt. If we don't borrow $1 million every year, our debt drops like a rock. I mean, we're paying close to $1 million in debt in principal every year.
I think there's a misunderstanding. We keep borrowing and raising rates and that's not, it doesn't coincide with anything. So I just wanted to note that.
It's actually the opposite. So
I
like,
just
we
want to
don't,
make sure that's noted.
we can borrow this, not from the bank, and borrow from the members through rates.
Correct.
Yeah,
And our equity continues.
yes.
That's what we've been
I
doing
mean,
for years.
we, at the end of the day, we're either borrowing from the bank or from our members. Now, I mean, you can make an argument that the bank is more expensive than our members, or you can make an argument the other way, but most people would say that members' money is more expensive than loan money.
Yeah, because it comes subsidized from the federal
At the
government.
current time, what is
Yes.
the rate we're looking at? Just out of curiosity, 5, 6?
Right? When I priced it this week, it was 6.8. That's kind of why I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that was 1.2 5 years ago.
So
That's the law.
that's the 30 year.
That's the 30 years. What's short term?
6.25 right now on line of credit.
They're both.
That's why I feel like neither option is screaming at me, pick this. So I feel like a mix of both I feel like doing nothing is not the answer, but I don't know which decision is right for sure. So I'd rather get a little bit wrong and a little bit right all throughout the next 8 months versus shoot for the fences and strike out. I'd rather get walks and singles versus strikeouts and home runs.
Small ball.
If interest was 1%, I'd say let's borrow every dollar we can get. We're not at that stage anymore. That opportunity is probably not going to come back in our lifetimes. So, but altogether based off the budget, the borrowing should be, there's the 7.6 for this stuff, but when you add in what's in the budget for everything else, it'll be close to about $10 million. So it will be a very significant amount of money, but we've also are putting in, when you look at it from the standpoint of we're doing, I would say between the fiber and the meters and our regular plant, we're still going to get, my rough estimate is we're going to get between 14 and $15 million worth of plant, and we're going to borrow 10 million.
And we have high equity the way it is.
Actually, I take that back. Probably going to get closer to, because the fiber project's going to be 10 million. We're going to borrow 6, so there's 4. Yeah, that probably is right. We're gonna get about $15 million for the stuff and we're gonna borrow $10 million. I mean, the thing is, our equity position isn't gonna change a ton because that grant money is a massive.
It is.
I mean, you're effectively getting things, grant money's a good deal.
Free assets.
Yeah. So
I have a request, very simple one, but I'd just like to see a line graph of what our equity position has been on a monthly basis for the last 3 or 4 years.
I think I have that actually going back.
I just like to see that trend.
I think I have a spreadsheet. I did that
What it is.
2003.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you have, it should be just a simple line graph.
In general, I
How
have
many years you want to go back?
pretty steady. The last 5 years, it hasn't changed much.
Last 5, it hasn't, but when you look back at the last time when they implemented meters, we did a huge, you can tell when we do work plans. It's interesting to look, Allison. We go back.
I think I have it to 2003, but I can't swear to that. I don't know if I have it monthly, but I think I have it annually.
10 years is my request.
Okay.
2015, 2016, 2025.
I think I have that in the budget presentation going back a bunch of years too. If you go in there, I put that, that's one of my slides I put in there is 10-year equity. If you go back, now I think about that, it probably is in your total order. So I know that's one of there it is. It's that slide right there.
Goes back to 10.
Now, I have it farther back than that.
That's fine. If it's is that this year's budget packet you're
Yeah,
looking
it's
at?
every year, so you could probably pull it from 5 years ago and get 15 years worth.
Scratch that request. I'll just look at it there.
It's always interesting when you compare us to the other co-ops too. Always find that interesting. Big KRTAs, they're always interesting to look at.
Anything else?
I assume that with the pole replacements now that we know what we're gonna have to do for next year, there's always opportunities there yet too, once they get all that stuff worked through. I know they're moving right along in operations on most of the projects.
We say it's really good to get work that directly impacts our members' reliability, but it comes at a cost.
There's a cost associated with that.
And we're still doing pole replacement, or we're still thinking about doing that, because we're ahead of schedule.
I would assume Johnny would love to, but
Well,
I just didn't know with all the money we're borrowing here for
we're doing
position, they can do that, or
I'm not planning on going any further pole replacements because we're doing those meter poles. You guys approved that. So we're going to
well,
go.
there's also something too that you can't really say in open session related to some pole contact requests. There's gonna be so many poles there that get replaced. It's gonna be astronomical.
That's going to screw with our balance sheet too.
Yeah. No, we're gonna, well, it
In a good way.
it won't screw with our balance sheet. We'll have money to offset it. We'll just have newer assets and zero cost of the book.
Correct. In a good way is what I meant.
Yeah. It won't show up on the balance sheet. That won't, because if somebody else pays to replace your stuff, you just got stuff for. That's a good deal too.
thank you.
Anything else with that? You will start to see it over the next several months, as it will start to show up. They're trucking along with the fiber, and those invoices are gonna roll in on a monthly basis.
Yeah, they're still gonna come in. All right, you guys ready to go to the next item? So it's that time of year after our annual meeting. that we do election of the Decatur County RMC officers. I know Brett has included in that agenda item from the bylaws, kind of how it's stated. I also know that in previous years, taking into consideration what currently exists and going forward with what exists, that made any sense. So I'll open it up for nominations for chairman, or if somebody has some kind of other motion that they might include without going through each one of these individually. Does that make sense? Suzanne,
You're just ready to take nominations, is that basically?
yeah, I think we'll start out. Yeah. Nominations for chairman.
Are you going to do it one more year or?
So,
Are you so inclined to? Are you willing, maybe?
I think the short answer is that I will be willing to do so. But if there's someone else that would recommend we do something else, I'm fine with that as well. So. Not everybody at once.
I nominate you then.
Is there anybody else that has an interest? I will ask that. To the chairperson. Yeah, at this point in time. We see people shaking their heads, negative direction, so.
I second it.
But I always get confused. I think we just have to have a nomination and then we can close the nominations. If there's nothing contested, I think we're good with that. Somebody help me if you look at the information that Brett posted, are we good doing that? I think that's correct. So the nomination was given. I didn't decline it.
So then you can
So
close.
for chairman, you haven't done it more than 6 years, have you?
No, I haven't, but, no, I think,
That line in there that
I
you
think
couldn't
we're
do.
going to. Does anybody remember for certain? Because, yeah, I went back and looked at that too, to where I saw the 6 consecutive years. Michael Brayley was chairman for 1 year. Does anybody remember what year that was? And I'm fairly certain I have not done 6 years.
It's not been you haven't been chairman 6 years since. He was
Okay.
quite certain.
I think Michael was the chairman when I started. And then he was not reelected then.
That's correct.
And then you became the chairman, if I remember right.
That
So
was-
this will be so I started here and this will be your 5th year then
Okay.
in a row.
I think I'll tell you what, I guess we're good with
I think it sounds good.
Suzanne making the nomination. And I'll accept, if we find out something different that I have served 6 years, then we'll change something, I guess, the following meeting. But
Change the government.
what's that, Suzanne?
We can change the amount to 7 years.
It's a bylaw thing, so we All right. So thank you for that, I guess. And then we'll go to the next vote, or we need a nomination for vice chair.
I'll nominate Dale Warnke.
Dale's currently that. Steve and I talked about it.
I'm willing to as well.
Is there anyone else that would like to consider being in that position. Anybody else in that position or consider that? So we have nominating Suzanne, and I think, and you would accept the nomination, correct? So, I'm not so sure, well, if we have no other nominations to close them, and with you being vice chair. And then we have secretary, and Steve Nobby's currently in that position.
Are you going to combine those two?
So we haven't in the past. However, I'm going to tell you because I'm reading the bylaws, so we may need to make some changes to these bylaws at some point. Where did I see that a person could not be nominated for more than one? Is that true? Maybe I misread that.
I know we've combined them, so what would the treasurer duties be?
I don't know.
I know we've combined in the last few years.
We have, I know we have.
We probably just need to update the file. Because the treasurer would really have no responsibility.
Not anymore.
Oh, we do have that. A person can be nominated and serve service for more than one office. So, Steve, you're currently secretary and treasurer, correct? You made the nomination. Was it for both those? And Suzanne, say it was for both secretary and treasurer.
Yes.
Yes. Do we have any other nominations? We'll close nominations and Steve, you'll continue that role. Good with
I
that?
accepted
Do you
it.
accept it? Did you accept it? Did you say that? Yes.
Yeah, that's all accepted.
Okay. And then we have the assistant secretary treasurer, as I believe the last office. And Jason is not here. He currently holds that position.
Is he willing? Do you know?
I don't know.
If he's not here, that means he's willing. I don't know how that always goes.
I'm thinking we missed an opportunity with the chairman.
I was kind of surprised.
Is there anyone else that's interested?
I had that.
I'll ask that question.
Do it if
I was gonna say,
that's.
Brian, can I nominate you since you know?
Sure.
I nominate Brian Schreiber.
I'll second it.
Okay, any other nominations? Nominations closed. Brian, congratulations.
Don't let the power go here.
So I think that supports the election of the Decatur County RMC officers. And so we'll continue with what we just voted on. Next item then is roundup trust appointments. I think there's some information. And Suhan has completed her final 3-year term, so Jason will need to find someone to fill her spot. When is that due?
No, we wanted to do it this month if possible. He has a name.
Oh,
As I say, he said last month that he had some.
what's the base?
Okay.
Yeah,
It's on Joyce.
okay.
Yeah, he said something about
I'd go ahead and approve it.
Steve, did you come up with
Becky
somebody?
Becky Metz is willing to do it.
Okay, so we have Joyce Holcomb and Becky Metz for your district, or not to be from your district. You found somebody, right?
Yeah.
So. Okay, so somebody want to make a motion to,
I'll make the motion for District 7, Joyce Holcamp, and District 3, Becky Metz.
Second.
we have a first and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're good there. The CFC conference is coming up this upcoming weekend. I know that, and it's not too late to do these delegates, is that correct?
No, because he'll take it to the card to the meeting and the card has on it
Okay.
delegation.
And I believe Jason is planning on going,
Yes.
and I don't think anyone else is.
Me, Jason, and Matt.
Okay, so, we probably want to make a motion to approve Jason to be the applicants.
Like that.
We have the first. And the second, all in favor, say aye. I was saying, Jason is the delegate for the CFC and NCSC. So we got those. Next item then has to do with our discussion around the operations buildings. And we did, so we're continuing from last month. I did talk to Brad, was it yesterday? Minutes. And if you'd like to expand on what your thoughts are as far as, you know, what.
So I think there's a couple things. So one, and I don't, Steve, that's completely up to you. If you want to wait until next month to do this exercise, we can do that. Gives some people some time to think. But one thing we thought about was what specific information and analysis does the board want to make a well-informed financial decision about investing in a new or renovated operation? So that it kind of gets to like the heart of like what gets you to yes, like what do you need? And this could be things like funding strategies, impact rates, you know, strategic long-term goals. And like, so what we're looking for, I think is like, okay, we've done some analysis, we've done some things we've brought to you, and it's kind of like, what else does the board need? So our thought is possibly break into small groups, do the exercise that we have here. Groups come back. Hey, here's the top 3 things that our group thinks, and then collaborate and figure out like what are the top 3 things that the board needs in order to get to a yes, no, essentially. And so, yeah, we'll do that.
And with the absence of Jason, I mean, you know, if you're willing, is that going to be impactful for you guys if we wait another month?
Absolutely not.
There was also though a comment made, if I'm not mistaken, last month though, regarding having a special meeting. You don't
I don't think we need a special meeting. I think we just need to carve out 15 minutes, break into groups, and just discuss like, what does every one of you going to have something different, probably, right? So I think good discussion around, well, what is it that you need in front of you to make a well-informed decision? Steve and I also talked about what I would like to recommend, and this isn't my decision, it's yours, but I highly, highly recommend, and I know that there's other co-ops that done this, that, I don't know a better way of putting it, so I'm just going to be probably a little blunt here, but I feel like the board's duty here is a financial duty, right? So you have financial oversight and financial say in where the co-op goes. And so I feel like let's separate the duties and the board figures out like financially how, you know, in other words, you make your decision and do the work of financial impact to the members long-term and financial impact to the business long-term. And then let us do the design work, right? Because I think if we get everybody involved and do we need 12-inch ceilings or 34-inch ceilings, or do we need this many offices and this many offices? You guys can control that by saying, hey, bring me a financial impact to rates at 6 million, 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, whatever, right? And you can set a threshold and say, go build something that costs X based upon the information that you got. Let us do the design. Like, because we're going to hire people that, number one, we are the people that work in this space every single day. Our guys know what works, what doesn't work. We're going to hire people to come in and tell us, you know, whether refurbishing or doing this, doing that. Steve got to visit Whitewater. And I told him, I said, so what'd you think of Whitewater? And he said, well, it's, you know, it's pretty, I said, that's the Taj Mahal compared to what we were building. It's a pole barn. So, you know, I think if we get into this where we got to get everybody involved in every single like nook and cranny, I don't think we're ever going to land on something. I think if you guys can focus in on the financials and the impact, like what is palatable to the membership, because that's who you guys are representing, what is palatable, what makes sense in the investment. And maybe the answer is no. we get there, we get there. But I think if you guys do that side of it, we'll work on the other side of it once you guys work on that. I don't think there's any, honestly, I don't know that there's really, I mean, that's why I'm saying maybe we just hand this out and everybody think about it, and then you guys break into groups next month.
And I think that will work. But I think something you said last month, are we going to be talking to the cost of service study folks in August?
No, we get is it August? So we're supposed to get it next week, our first draft.
Okay, I
I
thought.
can't remember.
So
It is in August.
do they need to be involved though, based upon, how rates will be impacted? Depending,
Absolutely.
Can they be doing something in advance for us, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Yes, we absolutely can. I want him right now focused in on the cost of service study, actual.
Sure.
But I think once he gets through the
Once you get
majority
the
of that,
draft, then what?
Then he'll be able to,
there is no need for us to push this
okay,
like,
by August.
what's another year? I mean, honestly,
Well,
I'm definitely not saying no, but I would never say yes to a one bid project of that caliber,
Sure.
that
and I think.
amount. Never.
and those are the things that.
I think multiple bids are fine. I mean, I would never, I'm not saying no to the operations building at all. I'm just not saying yes to a one bid project if it's that amount.
And I think that would be an obvious, what we would have to include for this to.
And I reiterated to all employees, look, here's the deal, and from my position. As a CEO or a manager, in Matt's case, it's my job to make sure that I hire the right people, I give them the tools, and I get the heck out of the way and let them do their job, right? I can't sit here and honestly tell you guys, I'm equipping the guys in the back with the tools they need to do their job efficiently. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'm still talking about this. And I have communicated to the company that the board had no way has said, no one has made a vote no. We're going to keep the conversation going. We're going to keep working on it. This is a big deal that can't just be, I mean, you just saw what we have to borrow now. Put this on top of it. This isn't a decision anyone in this room is going to take lightly. And so we've had those talks, and I think we just keep working it and how we get there.
So let me ask a question, Brett. The perspective you just laid out about we're concentrating on the financial side and not getting into the nooks and crannies. Steve and I talked on the phone the other night, and is that a change in your perspective? Because that's not what I sensed last month's presentation.
It was a change in my perspective 4 or 5 days after the last board meeting.
Because I shared with Steve I commend Johnny for the information, but the volume of information verbally, written, that was being circulated around this table and being passed around, I'll say for me, at an incredibly high fog index, meaning he's talking, I'm looking at something that he talked about 5 minutes ago, then I'm looking at something that he talked about 10 minutes ago, and I appreciate the approach you just outlined much more so than what we did last month. And that I don't mean to sound demeaning about what he did, because there's a lot of information there. But for me to stay in my lane as a director, I think the bumpers that we kind of laid out in financial planning is what we need to do on this project. Just to echo Suzanne's thing, when you're talking about the amount of money we just talked about borrowing already, and the perception in anticipation of questions that might have been posed at the annual meeting 2 weeks ago, that information is already circulating out there. We need to be prudent. We need to be frugal with what we do. And I'm much more inclined to be in favor of this approach than what I was last approach.
And I think it also puts us in a good position, because I'm telling you right now, I would never bring a building project to you guys without having an open house, without getting member feedback, without having members come in. We didn't do it with rates. Why would we do it with a building like this? Right? So I think it arms us with better information. It allows you guys to sit down and say, hey, no, this requirement is 3 bids. Even if they no bid, you got to go get 3 bids. So, I think outlining those things so that we have a clear understanding of and I think even getting to the point of, hey, this is, we could do financial impacts on doing this building. right? At all different levels. And then that's going to help you gauge, well, hey, look, 20 million ain't going to work, right? Just ain't going to work. But hey, maybe this number does. Figure out how to do it in those bumpers, right? Because I think I could bring you solutions that will fit. I mean, we could probably knock out 90% of these with a different, who knows? So I'm going to pass this around and let you guys kind of think about it. And I
You
suggest,
want to just email it to us?
yeah, I can do that. I suggest we do
Can you
that.
email us, we just type it out?
Yep.
That'd be great.
But
Easier for me.
The reason to build now is not because it's going to be more expensive tomorrow or next week or next month. We have to be thorough. We have to be prudent. And for us to get to that perspective may take 3 months, 8 months, 11, I don't know. But we have to be, in my mind, we have to be able to say, we've done our due diligence. Here are all the steps we've taken. And if as a result of that, the building is more expensive, we need to have the comfort that says, okay, we can absorb that.
Agreed. I think we're in a good spot, honestly. I think we all know more than we did 6 months ago, right?
I would hope.
So you'll go ahead and send that out.
Yep.
And we'll be thinking about some things, and then at next month's board meeting, we will attempt to go ahead and break out and maybe discuss amongst ourselves in a couple small groups, and then see what comes out of that. So that's the approach we'll take at this point. And I'll iterate it. I don't think there's anybody in here that's said, no, I don't want to go further with this. So we have to do our due diligence, and we'll get through it. Are we good with that then? Let's go to the next item. Couple policies. We had this on last month's agenda. We did not get to it. It's really going over the requirements that each director has on kind of their continuing ed, if you will, or participation in conferences and what have you. So there is a report out as I go through it. I don't know if there's anybody specific working on it for this year, but I did give a question that I wanted everybody to think about, excuse me, at last month's meeting. Right now, this goes from basically our annual meeting to our next meeting. Is that the best time frame to use, or should we consider more of January through December? Does it really make any difference?
I guess my question would be, is there one that's easier to monitor? Is it easier to monitor on a calendar year? Is it easier to monitor on?
I mean, we've changed a lot of things to go to a calendar year versus, even when we.
Because I know for me personally, I was planning on going to the Hoosier meeting, got canceled this year.
Exactly.
Steve and I are going to the BLC or at IEC directors at the end of July. But to be compliant, I need to pick up something else in the form of another BLC class.
Are you so for this, as I said, for this last year's cycle, you're basically saying, are you one short? No.
No, I went to one in November,
Gotcha. Okay.
but I was going to use the Hoosier meeting to be one of the ones for this year.
Right. And that didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Right. But then you have that opportunity to pick it up, and that's based upon, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make any difference, but I just wanted to hear from the board. You want to just leave it as is, assuming that it's from annual meeting to annual meeting. And for your question, Dale, I know Jeannie does this for us. I really doubt it's any more challenging for her to do it either way. As long as it's documented and she's aware of it. So
I think annual meeting to annual meeting makes the most sense anyway, because that's our election cycle.
I tend to agree, but based upon what we have in the policy now, that you have to have your CCD in the first 2 years, we'll hit that regardless of it being annual versus from annual. That makes sense, from calendar. But anyway, it's all good. So we'll leave it as is. I mean, I think that's just kind of the assumption in the policy, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't know if it specifically has in there from annual meetings on that. So if that's our interpretation, I'm fine with it. So for,
I'm sorry, back to your question, for me, now that I think about it, I probably am deficient. Because I was gonna use the Hoosier
well,
Energy.
so that's, okay, let's look at.
They don't need, use me as
So yeah, so it only basically, well,
I had one in December. And I was gonna use the other one in April, because the one Steve and I are going to would be the next fiscal year.
Oh, you didn't go to IEC?
I'm sorry.
You didn't go to IEC meeting?
you did the BLC course, though, correct?
In November.
And that's not, but that's not even recorded, is it? Or is it?
December 8th. 2024. DLC Road to Resilience.
I got it. I see it.
So that one was there, but I had to use the Hoosier as my second one, and
Right.
I got canceled.
Well, and then, so from my, I mean, to make sure every director adheres to this policy, not having the April one that you planned, you've already looked forward, right? I mean, you're already concentrating on going to the retreat.
PC Director Retreat.
And so I think that's certainly, now the question becomes, should I make the recommendation that you have two others in addition to that?
Yeah, and I'm looking, because the Hoosier, the IEC annual meetings and things, the other co-ops annual meetings also qualify, correct?
That is correct.
So I'm looking at other things like that, but
Okay, certainly worth it.
Michelle is next Thursday. Jasper's the 19th, Jackson's 17th.
So-
The drive-through.
I think everybody else was in compliance. Have I read that correctly? Everybody feel,
What now? Everybody else
everybody else is in compliance?
should be.
So you went to, Carl, you went to, oh, wait a minute, see, let's just make sure. You went last year to Jackson.
Yeah.
And what else?
And
Rush Shelby.
Rush Shelby,
Let's see.
and also, oh, that's 23.
Well, you got 20, you got 24. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of, yeah, you're good.
I thought it was. So.
You're good. So I think we're good. And then maybe the only recommendation, as I said, is, and you've already worked on it, picking up those couple others. So, is there anything from the policy that anyone thinks needs to be, modified? And I know we've made some changes in the past, requiring the CCD in the first 2 years. And then I think we put a little exception to the rule if the director is only elected for one term, but everybody else good with the existing policy as it exists today? Everybody good? Brian, you're good with it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next item then. That has to do with director fees and expenses. If you notice, there's a lot of REMCs reporting. And Brett, are you familiar with this document? If you go to the director fees and expenses, you may be a little familiar. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on that. I mean, right off the bat, I think there's a couple of REMCs that probably didn't report. I'm not so sure what that truly means.
So what I normally do, Steve, is I look over at the column O, P, Q, and R.
Mhm.
And then I compare that. So you see where I've highlighted us. I compare those four values to
Kind of vary
sort of the median number. And if you look at it, you guys are well below in all four categories. So
And I can't, can anybody remember the last time that we actually had modified?
was when I first joined because we got rid of the insurance allow.
That was right at that year.
Because that, when Brian and I were first elected in 18, that had just happened.
17.
The health insurance had
Trusted.
all gone away, and
That was the last time. And there wasn't any increase in pay. It was more or less converting what the cost of the benefit was from the health to
to a monthly
correct.
retainer stipend.
And though with the data that's applied to us, like you said, you're looking, you highlighted the median. There's still, REMCs all over them. But I think it's important that, I think all of us take this position seriously, and, it's one of those things that we do have the responsibility to even look at this. With that said, I know we've had discussion, I think even last year, we didn't follow through with anything in the policy to maybe incorporate additional money associated having your CCD and or then your BLC and your goals. And maybe, where we can fulfill this modification, if we decide to modify anything, is to support it through that. Like if we have a new director, maybe the 250 is fine, but if somebody when they attain the CCD, maybe that's bumped up $25. And when they attain BLC, maybe it's another 20. So I'm willing to hold on this for one more month. Any changes to the policy, if ever, but as you think about it, unless somebody has a definitive idea on maybe what we could yet do tonight. I know I don't want to exclude Jason since he's not here, but.
The reason we're looking at this is because why?
Policy says you guys will review the director's fees and expenses every year, as the chairman do it. Per policy. Doesn't mean you have to change it.
No, right. That
This has to be reviewed.
It has to be reviewed, and I think, it's kind of like then when you do look at the REMCs that have reported, it kind of gives you a barometer, if you will, of where we're at. And,
I bet we beat them in legal fees, though.
I'm sorry?
I bet we beat them in legal fees.
Yeah. I don't think that's a column in there. So if everyone's okay, maybe just moving this to next month's as well. Give it some thought. See what you think may make sense. And, there's several REMCs that do have a retainer fee of sorts. Again, not knowing the specific reporting REMCs, I mean, they're listed there as 1 through 34, but I don't know who number 1 is. I mean, I could take a guess. And not that we have to compare ourselves to anybody else, but when you look at it globally, I think we do need to just, make certain that we feel confident and comfortable where we're at. Okay, so we'll move it to next month for some additional consideration. And we may need to incorporate then a policy change to support that at that time. So everybody good with that? Okay, and then the additional, actually, Brett, we may need you involved on policy 12.2, the artificial intelligence. Now,
Don't ask any questions.
I've already gone. Didn't we talk about this? See, I've lost track the last 2 months.
Did you say it was just standard that legal? It was
This
just
was
a
so
cookie cutter standard thing that we just need to approve for the AI.
NRECA basically put together a legal team, and this is basically what they came up with.
And I'm assuming other REMCs have sued or potentially filed.
I would say they read the exact same way.
Didn't we already approve this?
I don't think we approved it. I think we looked at it, but I think that was 2 months ago when we looked at it.
It's saying May 28th adopted.
What did?
At the bottom of it says, I think we approved it because we discussed it was a cookie cutter that we just need to basically.
And why is it on here?
We discussed it. I know we discussed.
I know we did because I said it was a staple at this point.
Look and see.
Understand it.
Was that included in the
It's
minutes?
supposed to be adopted on May 28th.
I see on the policy, did it say in the minutes that we approved the policy?
I didn't go that far.
So those would be June's. Minutes, right? Or May's minutes.
It's what,
Yeah, what we approved.
tonight.
Yeah, but did we include the policy? Because if we did, we didn't. Well, then I think we,
Get it in a minute.
I think we tabled it for this month.
yeah, maybe we just looked at it. But it does say date adopted.
So that's just because that was the
Okay.
date that it was going to be adopted, but I don't think we ever did.
Okay.
So
That's a good point. though.
2B. On the
Or not.
policy. Or not 2B.
Okay, last month it said date adoption was May 22 on that.
Yeah, I probably.
It talks about using an approved AI system. It says they're prohibited from using an approved AI system. So are they not prohibited from using an unapproved AI system? And what? To be. Employees, board members, and contractors are strictly prohibited from using an approved AI system in a manner. So does that, they can use an unapproved, how do you get?
You want to strike the word approved?
So I don't know what an approved AI system is versus an unapproved AI
It
system.
states it in B right below that, doesn't it? In A and B.
Oh.
Examples of approved versus examples of impermissible. Is that your question, Dale? I think that's what it's alluding to there. But it's still pretty. I don't know.
So, but it's saying they're prohibited from using those.
So then does legal drafted it, so sure. They got their basic.
It's gotta be all right.
They use AI to draft it,
Yeah.
an approved AI to draft it.
Yeah.
I don't know why they use the word approved.
Well, I
tell you is-
that's what I highlighted. I
But they define approved. next thing.
They do, and that makes sense then.
Is there any, should we have Aaron consider looking at this before we approve it, or
Yeah, we
do anything to approve it and then do it? We haven't done that. She hasn't really seen this then.
Well, to me, and Brian said, maybe the approved needs to, I mean, why would you? The way I read it, it says they can't use approved AI systems.
Yeah, well, I see
But it
that.
doesn't say that they can't use unapproved AI systems, because right below that, it says, here's AI approved systems.
Doesn't make sense.
So
It's oddly stated, I will agree.
Give some clarification.
Absolutely.
Put it to July's meeting.
Yep, we'll push that one back.
chat GPT or whatever sequence.
So we'll, hopefully we'll have an opportunity to go ahead and approve that next month with or without modifications. The next three items have to do with typically what we do after the end of the meeting. There are a couple documents here that probably be appropriate to go ahead and sign them now. We can all do that at this time. I'm not going to read these to you. We have, looked at them from time to time. And I would like to think that every director follows the oath. And then the policy 116. So unless you guys want me to do it, I don't think that's the case. I think we'll go ahead and fill out the conflict of interest along with the director of ethics. state you have read it. I know you've read it before and probably again. So I've had a request that I read it to you. But I think he was kidding. I know.
Getting older by the minute.
Okay, so just make sure you have those filled out and give those to Steve when you're there. So that takes care of the policies, I guess. Ryan, anything about hometown? Nothing. Jason's not here, so we can't really, unless Brett has something to share from Hoosier.
No, I mean, there was just committee meetings. They didn't have a board meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. And then as far as the IC board, we did have a regional meeting at Whitewater. Our region consists of Bartholomew, Henry, Decatur, Whitewater, and Rush Shelby. And so the IEC director is present typically. They were all there. We're all there. CEOs were typically there. Brett was not there. He was on vacation. Our agenda was quite brief. The goal, and I share this with you because IEC has recently implemented, and I was going to make sure, Brett, you would see the email from Michael about any contact with legislators. So we had on the agenda for our regional meeting that we would be talking to numerous legislators at that meeting. They reached out to 6, and I don't think anybody responded. I know no one was present. So we had to live a little bit and kind of talk amongst ourselves about, brag about something. And so the bragging aspect of that meeting was really centered around the annual meetings that has just taken place. Most had good turnouts. There was that discussion. I think Brett had mentioned earlier, I was able to get to look at the new building. I didn't ask a lot of financial questions, but it is nice. Brett probably has a better idea of how many years they've been there. There was a lot of planning that was going on just prior to the, and so from a financial perspective, I think it turned out to be a positive for them when timing often is. But it is a nice building. They have a 20-acre piece of ground, and I think they're sitting on 10 acres right now. One of the interesting stories, though, is there was a house that was on the property, and it just so happened they were able to take a few things from that house and incorporate that into their office. Other than that, I think that's all I have for the IEC board. We have another meeting in August at IEC, along with, I am going as well to the IEC retreat. And so, but we'll have another board meeting.
Fort Wayne.
It is in Fort Wayne. Anybody participate in any training or conferences this last month? Aware of? Before we close the open meeting, does anybody have anything that we need to bring up? in the open? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned at